But when a
Hmm.
man of character calls you on and out of bad situations or bad habits, that's when you really find a change in your life. And I know I did.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the What's the Dope podcast. Joined today by Hector Lazaro. Some of you may have actually seen him, seen his face, seen his podcast around What's the Dill. That's because I actually went on his podcast last year, about a year ago around this time.
Yeah.
And we had a great conversation. We each had a great conversation, had some great clips. So he's actually, if you scroll down a little bit on Instagram, you'll see some clips we've done together. And so he's a great young guy. Met him here in Texas. Has a great story. So I wanted to get him here in the pod and just hear more about his story and then talk about a few things that we have cooking for this year. So Hector, welcome, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited, dude.
You know it, man. You know it, man. So you're in Houston right now, right?
Yes, sir. I'm in northeastern Houston. Yes, sir.
Okay, so Houston, and are you a Texans fan or you're a Cowboys fan, aren't you?
Yeah, dude. I'm a hardcore Dallas Cowboys fan. I bleed blue, man.
Yeah, I remember we had texted about that. I think last year they were in the playoffs, they lost. What happened this year?
We had a pretty bad year, which if anybody's asking my opinion, it has a lot to do with a very bad previous offseason. So it all just kind of went downhill from there, and we didn't even get to playoffs. So
Yeah, I was very well aware of the record. I just wanted for the listeners to know, and I wanted you to say it that the Cowboys didn't make the playoffs.
I
So,
had to make me bleed. Yeah, I
um,
got you. I got you.
yeah, man. Well, dude, thank you again for coming on. Appreciate it so much. Um, I would love for you to just start. Tell me a little bit about your journey with the faith. Because, you just graduated college. You're 23, 22,
22.
22. So you just graduated college. You had some great experiences with SPO, some campus ministry in college. But, like, walk me through that experience. Did you grow up Catholic? Did you not grow up Catholic? Talk to me a little about your kind of journey.
Yeah, dude. So I was born at a very young age, as many would say.
Classic. Classic.
No, yeah, dude. I was raised Catholic with all the Catholic values. Went to mass. I mean, learned the prayers. This was all in Spanish too. I mean, because I was actually born in Mexico, and
Okay.
we ended up coming over here when my mom and my dad separated. And through all that, I mean, my mom and my grandma were always very steady with faith and very, I mean, rosaries, all you name it, And I wasn't ever convinced about it. I never really had like a hard inkling, but at the same time, I knew there was a God. I just
Yeah.
wasn't convinced of the Catholic Church. I think that was the main
Mm,
thing. And every night, I mean, I did my prayers, and I was invested with my mom doing like these, basically the daily readings. We would go through them and all that. So it was good. And then it came to a time later in high school where I started exploring into Protestant faith and
hmm.
into this church here in Houston that was Protestant. And I just liked the worship. I really went
Yeah.
there for the singing and the being vulnerable with the Lord. I mean, that's really where I found like, oh, like there really is a God.
Mm,
But it was still like a lot of doubt and a lot of me looking up at God as like this huge being who has nothing to do with me and just created the
yes.
universe. So all that, uh, and then also having that fatherly wound where people would be like God the Father, I'd be like, I don't like the word father, I don't, I didn't like that. So
Yes.
early college, I met SPO when I was just doing my little college thing, and I got stopped by this one missionary Thomas Hammond, which I know you know him.
Shout out
And
Thomas, my
y'all should go
boy.
look him up. He has great stuff. He's in seminary now. And yeah, man, if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't have experienced the Holy Spirit in a new way. Through that, I got invited to some men's environments, and dude, that's what called me on because I was so attracted
Mm,
to the masculinity and the
hmm.
let's go smoke a brisket, let's
Mm,
go run a mile, let's box, like stuff like that. That was just
yes.
like, wow, like this is the environments that I want to be in. And
Yeah.
eventually got to a retreat my freshman year called Fan in the Flame. Many know of it, and yeah, dude, I experienced God for the very first time. And
Mm,
I say this all the time because people will be like, well, what if God's not real? And I'm like, it's not an if for me, it's a I know because it's an experience, not just about faith, but this is like I've felt as much as I experience
Yes.
you, Pete Dill, I have experienced God
Yes.
personally, whether seeing is not necessarily believing, but feeling I think really can be. So yeah, that happened, and after that retreat, I got baptized because I wasn't baptized Catholic. Again, I grew up Catholic,
Okay.
but I was never baptized until my freshman year of college. After that
Okay.
retreat, dude, I was baptized April 3rd of 2021,
Wow.
and I just ran from there, man. I just took
Wow.
off and dove into the scriptures. My first task, I like to say, as a Catholic, was reading through the Gospels, and
Yeah.
that was like really beautiful because at the time I knew what I was reading and going through it and praying with it, but then I go back and I'm like, man, this is not what I read before. It just kind of
Yes.
comes back alive more and more. And
Yes.
then beautifully enough, I went to Israel this
Mm.
past April, I think. And dude, the scriptures just keep coming more alive. I mean, it's like a
Mm.
painted picture. It's really incredible. So that's kind of my faith journey in a big bubble.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, that's an incredible story. Um, I love the experience part you're talking about, the encounter with the personal God, with Jesus.
Yeah,
We've been talking a lot about that on this podcast. Like, there's rules, there's beliefs, there's precepts, there's theology, but it has to come from a place of an encounter. And I feel
yeah,
like
man.
you are the blueprint. It's like you have these,
Yeah,
you said you have separated parents, you're coming to a new country as a kid, you're doing your thing, you're stopped by a guy who invites you and you have an encounter with God, and that is able to like change your heart. That's the
exactly.
blueprint, man. That's
Yeah,
the
dude, I,
blueprint for
I
it.
say this all the time. I can only say so much, and there's nothing that anyone could have told me or that anyone can tell anyone about God. Like you have to feel it. There can't be just a, hey, by the way, there is a God. It's like, no, Jesus wants to enter into your life in a new way, a fresh way. So,
Yeah. How have you dealt with the ups and downs of that feeling, because I think there's what we call in the Christian world the spiritual high, the retreat high,
yeah,
these
man.
highs. How have you dealt with kind of leveling out the high to kind of make it just like a day by day thing
Yeah,
with your faith?
well, as you're saying, I mean, I think it is a day by day process. Um, but there's this I know you know who Saint Ignatius is. And for anybody that doesn't, look up Saint Ignatius of Loyola, and he
Mm,
has these rules of discernment. And I learned about those pretty early on. I think my sophomore year of college
mhm.
is when I learned about them. And what the premise of it is there's two things. There's consolation and desolation,
Yeah.
and consolation is that high that you're talking about. It's those moments where you feel close to God, where you experience Him, you feel Him, you can hear Him. And then desolation is those moments where you don't, where it's just like really dry
Yeah.
prayer, what a lot of people say, or these moments where you feel so far away from God. And it's not necessarily by cause of sin or by cause of anything else, except for sometimes what Saint Ignatius says is God is bringing us through that and forging us in the desolation. And sometimes he gives us consolation. So what he says is, in times of desolation, pray more. And
Mm,
that's really the effort I think that I give is in times where I do feel desolation, I just try and add something else. And that has usually kind of helped. But you'll realize once you come out of those periods of desolation, is that it was worth it a lot of the
yeah.
times, and that it was a lot longer than what you really knew. That you're like,
Yeah.
wow, like I'm in this whole new level now. So I guess in short, to say how I deal with it is pray more and kind of suck it up and just believe.
Yeah, like ride it out.
Yeah, yeah, pretty
Write it out. Yeah.
much.
Dude, that's really incredible that you're able to kind of recognize and live out that desolation consolation concept,
Hmm.
because that's not an overly like I love that kind of the Ignatian practices because and his ideas and thoughts because they're spiritual, but they're also based in like psychology, they're based in human nature, they're based in like how they're very human. So it's like we all are feeling consolations and desolations.
Yeah.
But I think it's like you're basically saying like I'm not blaming God for my desolations. I'm gonna
Hmm.
pray more, I'm gonna ride it out. And that is
Simple as
such a
that.
powerful attitude.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people do tend to blame God, or some people take it the other way and blame like, oh, I am I doing something wrong? And
Yeah,
like, and it's not
totally.
necessarily that, but I mean, think about it. When you go work out, do you stay lifting 5 pounds for your whole life, or do you ever increase in weight or increase in reps? You know,
Yeah,
there
dude, I do
has
like
to be.
250 pounds. Easy. Easy, dude. Bench press, whatever, man. Throw
Yeah,
300 pounds.
exactly.
I'll do it.
Exactly. So there
Yeah.
has to be growth by tension. And I think that's what I
Yes.
try to come back to after maybe I might go 2 days of no prayer and I'm like, oh crap, like I'm, and I gotta get back and I just pick up the Bible, just start with 5 minutes of prayer in the car in the morning, whatever it
Yeah.
is, just kind
Yeah.
of dive back in whatever way you can and add something and continue just writing it out like you said.
Ooh, bro, that's fire. Just like to get a little something in. That I try to live with just like get a little something in. It's so because I do like I'll
Amen.
play the blame game. Oh gosh, I haven't prayed in 7 days. I'm sorry. What am I doing? I need my better time management. I could pray right now, but I'm gonna spend 11 minutes just blaming myself.
Yeah,
I
dude.
could just pray for 3 minutes right now. So I love that, man.
Exactly. Exactly.
So dude, I love hearing you talk about the scriptures, dude. And like how alive they are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
can you like walk me through a little bit more of your appreciation for the scriptures,
Hmm.
and like how they kind of are like able to speak to your life?
Yeah, man. Dude, I could go on about this for the rest of my life.
Let's go.
But yeah, I think that going to Israel has really awakened a lot of that beauty for me. And the reason why is because you look at Jesus and the man that he was and is, he fulfilled 300 or over 300 different prophecies
Yeah.
from all the Bible. I'm not just talking Gospels, I'm talking from Genesis to Revelation. These
Hmm.
prophets that lived in completely different periods of times, we're talking thousands of years apart
Yeah.
and thousands of miles apart, where they had nothing to do with each other
Yeah.
except for maybe lineage. I mean, things like that.
Yeah.
And they had these prophecies and had direct communication with God and spoke of a savior coming and the things that
Yeah.
he was going to do and the things that were going to happen. And Jesus comes and he fulfills every single one of them. And it's just so beautiful to see that later come in the Gospels. I mean, like we always say, this is the greatest love story ever. You
Mm.
you go back to Genesis. I mean, even in Genesis, right, the fruit coming off of the tree and Jesus coming and putting it back on the tree, nailing it back on the tree, right? So
Yeah.
there's these beautiful connections I think that have drawn me in a lot more. And also going to Israel and walking those steps of
Yeah.
Jesus. A lot of people, they focus on the Jesus part, but also walking the steps of Mary. Bro,
Mm.
that is like this whole other portal opens where you're like, I didn't know, you realize that Jesus being crucified, how long he actually walked, and how these streets were full of dirt and rocks and like all of these things coming into his wounds, and you start listening to those things in scripture a little more of how he was spit on, how he was mocked, and the way the way that he was whipped. I mean, the what is it called? Like the cat of nine tails. I mean, all those
Yeah.
things being nailed to the cross. And then, man, there's nothing in the world that compares to kneeling at the foot of the cross where the cross stood and placing your hand there, man. I mean, that will
Mm.
bring anyone to tears. And through all that, it brought me back in to relive this story with Jesus, right? And to really look at those stories in scripture. And another thing that I would say is really helpful for people if you haven't been able to find those scriptures come alive, there's a lot of visual learners. I really recommend The Chosen. Have you seen The Chosen?
Hmm. Not
Okay,
all of
yeah,
it,
dude.
but yeah, I've seen a lot of them.
Dude, I mean, y'all
So
gotta
good.
go see The Chosen. The Chosen does a really good job of visually explaining how all of this went down and what the customs were in those times, and kind of brings you a little deeper into what the stories
Yeah.
really mean.
Yeah. I love hearing the connection to like the Holy Land, the Jerusalem, Israel. I feel like so many Catholics that go over there only have kind of like incredible things to say.
Oh yeah.
I really want to get over there one day.
Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah. It comes alive
Yeah.
like crazy. Because
Heck yeah.
Mary is so inevitable. I don't even know how to say that word. Mary's there, like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
see, you walk through it and you're like, wow, this woman who said yes. I mean, she kind of carried the weight of the world in her womb, like that's amazing. So,
Yes. Um, So that's great, man. I love to hear your passion about the scriptures. You know, yeah, it's just like so important in our faith. Um, I want to harken back a little bit to something you're talking about, kind of like men's culture, men's attitudes.
Hmm.
That's kind of something that brought you into the faith. I think we all know um, we need strong men of faith. We
Yeah.
need like guys. We need dudes, guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Guys are attracted to that. Guys are attracted to strong cultures. So yeah, tell me like a little bit about like how yeah like a men's culture and how important it was for you. Yeah, go into more detail on that.
Yeah, bro. So I think that nowadays a lot of fathers aren't present, and a lot of fathers don't do a good job of being good masculine men to their sons. And that just brings this whole like loop where families are being broken apart, or families are having a lot of issues, and a lot of healing needs to be done. And I think that having these men's environments and these men's cultures provided a lot of healing, at least for me, and kind of brings us deeper into our identity as men. There's nothing like having brothers to run with and to kind of
Yeah.
call you on, because, I was always told this too, and it's healed men heal men, you know?
Mm,
So the more men that you surround yourself with that understand the big picture, bring you deeper, I think, into your faith and into your true identity, right? And
yeah.
these aspects of masculinity that we so desire, but sometimes don't know how to grasp, because
Yeah.
we're told in our society what a man is this tough macho dude who plays football and gets the
Yeah.
girl and does all these other things to make himself look cool. And it's all about the external but when a
Mm,
man of character calls you on and out of bad situations or bad habits, that's when you really find a change in your life. And I know I did. And there was nothing like walking. I mean, I remember my first time walking to the men's house. I walk in, and there's these three dudes just pumping iron. I mean, they're going at it and just like being bros, but there
mm,
was no weird like flexing of like, oh, I'm better, or it was like
mm.
supporting each other. Like, so I think you have to surround yourself with men that will hold you accountable and that you can also call on yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. What was your perception of what a man was when you grew up? You kind of mentioned like a father wound, your parents separated. What was your perception of
Mhm.
what like a man was growing up?
Man, if I'm being really honest, it was
Please.
someone who got the girls, you
Yeah.
know. It was about the women. That was my picture. My picture was a masculine person is someone who attracts women, has
Mm.
sex, and can show off, and is strong, and never wears pink. Like, that was kind of what I really did believe, and
Yeah.
I didn't even realize I believed that until I kind of matured more, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm understanding now.
The challenge and tension with our society is that on one hand we promote that example of a man that you described who you thought that's how a guy is, gets the girls, just like does whatever he wants, is strong, is attracting women in his life. We promote that, and we promote celebrity gossip stories. It's like, hey, look at this guy, he's with a new girl, and this guy, he's got a new girl and a new girl. And
Hmm.
then the next story is like, how come our society's falling apart? How come marriages are falling apart? How come
Yeah, man.
women can't find spouses? How come women can't find good husbands? Where's the good men? It's like because we promote the opposite of the
That's
values
absolutely
of
right.
that.
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
People always ask you, like, who are you? And people will
Yes.
be like, I'm a baseball player. I
Yeah.
am a engineer. I am Hector or whatnot.
Yeah.
And those things are true, but those are just subcategories to who we really are. And what I would say the proper definition, if you are a Christian man, would be that you are firstly a son of the Father and you are beloved. And then secondly, you are a masculine form, which the Lord intended for you to enter into more deeply. And then you're all the other things, but your main identity has to be rooted in the Lord, I think.
Incredible, man. So how have you been transitioning? How's your life, the practicals, everything, the faith? How's it been transitioning since you got out of college and you've kind of not had this built-in accountability, built-in support, built-in prayer. How's that been for you?
Yeah, bro. Um, so when I was in college, after getting baptized and all that, I was very invested
Mm,
into the community when it came to faith. I mean, I was a men's group leader, I was a men's culture leader, I emceed men's nights, I emceed City on a Hill my last year in college. And what my week kind of looks like to show you is Mondays were a little bit chill, you know, you went to your typical classes, you had your holy hour in the morning or holy whatever, 30 minutes, and then you went on and maybe you go to daily mass or something, maybe you go to confession, and you kind of go on about your day. And then Tuesdays was City on a Hill, right? It was like community event. And then Wednesdays I had formation night with SPO. And then Thursdays we had men's night. And then Fridays we'd get together for Ultimate Frisbee with all the men. And my week was just packed with prayer, you know, and Saturday you might do something else with the guys, and then Sundays was mass, and you repeat. So I had so many things that was fulfilling my life, and it was beautiful. And this constant daily prayer, you know, wherever it was, but pretty much throughout my whole day. I mean, the God was invested in the whole thing. So it was good, and I grew a lot through it. This was all 4 years that I ran with that. And coming out of college was tough, if I'm being very
mm,
honest. It was rough
mhm.
because you don't have that. You don't have that community. Um, quite as available, and you don't
Yeah.
have as much time. I think that I misunderestimated that a lot when I was in college, was thinking that I was very busy all the time, but
Yeah.
I had a ton of free time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and when you kind of get out of that and get into the real world, that's where I realized like, wow, it's hard to get 15 minutes of prayer, and it's hard to get 5 minutes of prayer in, you know,
Mm,
and not
mhm.
being in those worship environments is also kind of costly. And can kind of feel like your faith is being stripped away, is the
Yeah.
truth.
Yeah.
And I think that all of us that are coming out of college or that are leaving these certain environments where you're jam-packed with faith is to remember that the Lord is faithful, and that there's different seasons to our lives. And this season may not look like 15 minutes of prayer every day.
Mm,
It may not look like mass every day, you know, and but if we can just get those small wins like we talked about as much as we can, and kind of make one step forward towards the Lord every day, that's where we'll find growth.
yeah. Yeah. And that's a normal challenge for everyone. No, you know what I mean? Like everyone has that challenge of shifting environments. Big drastic transitions of life are gonna have a drastic transition of like faith, at
Right.
least what it looks like that the day to day. So totally normal. I also think that's why it's important that it's like, how do we repeat that cycle like you were talking about? How do we find those guys? How do we find that community to keep living it out? Because it doesn't.
Sure thing.
You maybe have experienced this the past few months since you've been out of college, but like it doesn't end. Like college, it doesn't end. It's the same. You need the same things. You need the same experiences. You need the same, like you need those environments.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that as you adjust, you know, and find those environments again, um, you have to kind of stay faithful to that and know like it may not
Yeah.
be as consistent, it may not be every
Yeah.
week, but maybe I'll get together with some dudes this month. You know, I just went on or went and helped out with this retreat here at U of H and
Mhm.
met some guys there, and I'm gonna start going to a small group like twice a month. And so it's, you
Nice.
know, you kind of have to reel yourself back in, and it takes a little bit of effort, but everybody can do it.
Yeah. And there's so much grace. There's so much grace. Like, 27 seconds of prayer sometimes is the best prayer I have all month when I'm just like
Come on,
trying
man.
to fit in, and I'm just like literally like,
Yeah.
Lord, I can give you 30 seconds right now. And it's like, wow, that was great. I feel good. God really met me there.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great,
Yeah.
man. So, um, I also know that you are, like an engineer.
No, I'm a chemist.
Oh, chemist. Sorry, sorry, sorry. I was gonna say
Yeah.
chemical engineer. You're a chemist.
No, I'm a
Sorry,
chemist. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
chemist. For all the chemists out there, they got really offended. So you're
They
a
were very
chemist.
offended.
Yeah. um, how has that been like? Outside of the faith, just how has that been to kind of like work in a corporate environment, work in a job day in, day out for you?
Yeah, it's good, man. It's really good. I want to start with that. It's that it's fun, you know, you kind of you hear all these things in college of like, oh, 47% of the people that leave college don't end up doing what they studied. And even if you end up in a similar job, you don't end up using anything that you learned. Yeah, that's not how I experienced it at all. I mean, like I
So
use
true.
everything,
That's
everything
great.
that I learned in college. I've been applying in one way or another, like a lot of lab techniques and things like that. And that helped me a lot to get this job too, because in the interview they were mentioning these certain instruments, and I'd be like, yeah, I worked with an HPLC and I worked with a GC, and they were like, "Oh, okay, good." You know, a lot of people don't say that. I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, that's just Texas State education, man. That's the Harvard of the South. Let's go, go
Eat
Cats,
them
go!"
up. What was it?
Yeah,
Eat them up.
whatever it is. Um, yeah. So I've been enjoying it a lot, man. I've been having a good time,
Yeah.
and it's challenging. You know, kind of those environments are very different than what it is in school. You know, you're working with grown men and grown women who've been doing this for years. And for me, it's been a big adjustment because I work at a chemical plant, and I talked
Hmm.
about this on my podcast. But in the plant, the plant runs 24/7, so we work on
Yeah.
what's called a DuPont schedule, and it's shift work. So I end up working some nights, I work up some days, but basically in a month I work 14 days and I'm off
Okay.
14 days.
Okay.
And in the time that I'm there, I just run these tests and stuff and whatnot. So it's tough. I mean, I have a hard shift. But it's good. It's really good. And even there, you know, when you're in college and you're getting out, like the whole goal of us being so invested in our faith is that we're disciples to the world and that we
Yeah.
continue spreading the
Yes.
good news and being the good and faithful Catholics that we're supposed to be. But the reality is that it's really hard to do that. Yet I found a lot of grace in a lot of the conversations that I had, you know, and sometimes it kind of takes that courage.
My default is to always preach at someone, try to
Hmm.
teach someone, try to tell
Yeah.
someone. I find
Yeah.
my initial thing is always like I can talk about this. What
Hmm.
I've been challenged on by people and by the Lord is, can my faith be a witness in the workplace by everything that's not about the faith, but like my attitude, my listening skills? Am I
Hmm.
actively loving someone about just like loving them in a relationship? Not saying, hey, you have to invite them over for a beer every day, but like asking about their life,
Yeah.
caring, listening, actively listening, not
Yeah.
being detached from them. Am I humble with my manager? Am I not always trying to get the last word in professionally? Am I complaining all the time? Do I complain about
Yeah.
people? Do I
Yeah.
engage in office gossip? And these things are, I find myself failing at those things that I just mentioned more so than moments of faith. That I've gotten more comfortable in my faith. I've gotten more comfortable talking about it. People at work, people even, they know where I stand in things and like life. It's the other things that I think are really, really the best witnesses, where they go, this kid shows up on time, never complains, is always having a positive attitude, never gets involved in office politics or gossip, and just is always there and is always backs up his word, always does what he says he does, always does what he says. That is a witness to faith that I think we as men need to like work on and kind of look at as like an evolution of the politics is coming up. How can I kind of express the Catholic point of view, which has its time and its place? But like you said, it's so divisive that like, is it even possible to be a witness to the faith when there's walls built up, there's professional things in the way? But if you can, like you said, listen, can I listen to my coworker? Can I ask them follow up questions? Can I not be urgent to speak and one up them? Can I just listen
Yes.
to them about their life? Tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more. Can I just say, tell me more to someone in workplace? And that I think is a witness that
Yeah,
we need
man.
to work on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I cannot agree more. I think that I found myself in a lot of those situations where the Lord's tested me, and I'm not perfect, right? And just like
Yeah.
you, I failed at a lot of those things. But there's certain tendencies that I have that I've like placed in my life that are noticeable, right? Like I show up 30 minutes early
Yeah.
every day because I've always been big on being on time everywhere that I go is I think punctuality is a really good thing. And they've noticed that, at my job, they've been very aware and they're like, "Yeah, dude, you always show up 30 minutes early. What's up with that? You're giving the company time." And I'm like, I just rather not get stuck in traffic and have to call and say, "Hey, I'm
Yeah.
late." And they appreciate that because I have to relieve some people. And then also things like engaging in certain conversations and saying, I don't really know, man. I got to get back to work." Like
Yeah. Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of stepping away
Yeah.
from those other,
So
and
true.
yeah, and then politics is a big one because a lot of the questions that I get are, "Well, what do you think about economics?" And I'm like, well, economics is one thing, but they're like, "Why do you like this candidate or why don't you like this other one?" And I'm like, well, just based on what I care about, which is, God, uh, I agree with these things because of this. If I'm asked, right, I don't just step into a conversation and say, "No, because God
Hmm.
says these things,"
Yeah.
like I was told before, Thomas actually used to say this a lot, is it's not worth winning the argument if you're going to lose the person.
100%.
And I live by that, man. I live by that. Sometimes I will let the other person win the argument.
So tell me about your podcast. As I mentioned earlier, I was a guest on your podcast. Like, why did you start one? What's been your experience having podcast?
Yeah, let's go pursuing truth. Um,
Let's go.
man, it's kind of a long story, but I guess I'll keep it short. So when it comes to the podcast, my mom, it's really started with my mom, and the idea kind of went from there. My mom had seen these videos on Facebook of these people in Mexico that were like making some ridiculous content, man. I mean, just talking about absurd things like relationships and drugs. And, anyways, they were getting millions of views for it and making millions of dollars off of it. And Mom's like, I just can't understand how in the world we're so attracted to terrible media. And she was
Mm,
like, why? I just wish that people could hear your conversations. I just wish that people could hear the way that you speak about God, the way that you read the Bible, the way that you worship, the way that you speak with your brothers about the faith. Like, I wish those conversations could be what we focus on so much and not all this other drama. And I was like, hmm, maybe we can make that happen. So from there, the podcast idea had kind of roamed around SPO, and I prayed with it. And man, I felt called. I really did. I felt called on by the Lord, and I just had to obey. And I had no idea where it went. I just felt like the Lord told me, "I just want you to start."
mm,
And the word truth came to me in prayer. And I don't even think I spoke about this before, but it came because of the transcendentals, right? Truth, beauty, and goodness. And truth really spoke to me because in a world with so much, disagreements and all these lies, I just heard so many lies. The word truth to me came because of the lies.
mm,
And I just felt called on by the Lord to find the truth, right? Like that's
mm,
why the Lord came, right? He says, "I am the truth." So it's like we got to walk towards the truth.
mm,
So pursuing truth podcast is really pursuing Jesus podcast.
mm,
That's the truth behind it, right? Is um the hidden message is we're going after the Lord. And whatever that looks like, whether it looks like scripture analysis, conversation,
mhm,
whatever it is, we're gonna walk that way and we're gonna pursue uh
mm,
where the Lord is. And from there it just kind of took off, man. I just had to build up the courage, and thanks to the grace of God, I just things were put in my way, right? The church that I was going to, Olo, at the time had some podcast equipment. I borrowed it from them and I just went for it, bro. And I
mm,
was, shaky voice and all, sweaty palms and all, and I was just like, "Welcome to Pursuing Truth podcast." And I look back on that now and I'm like, God, that was a terrible episode. Like,
yeah,
and, and then I just kind of
yeah,
ran from there, man. I just
yeah,
followed where the Lord was leading, and I took a break for a while, but I'm back now. Just posted my first episode this last Monday. So go check it out. It's cool.
yeah. Everyone go check out Pursuing Truth. Yeah, I was on as a guest and was able to witness a live show that you did with some guys down at Texas State. Yeah, you have a great passion for the faith, and you know, yeah, really able to get interviews really, really well, or to like move through interviews very, very well. Yeah, it's a really great podcast. Been able to listen to a bunch of that. And on that, I think I wanted to then share with all of you out there, a thing that Hector and I actually have kind of come to, and a big reason Hector is on, and it's not going to be the last time he's on What's the Dill, is that we have talked a lot in the past, Hector and I, about our kind of shared mission of using media and new media and podcasts to share the faith, have conversations, reach out to people, and just be a tool for God and building the kingdom. And so, something that's been on my heart, like I've mentioned with all of you, is building out this podcast network, building out this media company, little by little by little. So, this is also a time where Hector has been moving out of his kind of traditional gear, systems, people, environments that he's had. So, he was looking for a new beginning with pursuing truth. So we had some great conversations, and where we actually landed was, I invited Hector and Pursuing Truth podcast to come under and live under the Backseat Media podcast network. So there's going to be more details to follow. There's going to be things that take shape in the future. But Hector accepted that. Hector was totally on board for that. And what that's going to look like is I'm going to help support Hector in his podcast journey. Hector's going to be doing his thing. He's going to be putting on his podcast about once a month, right? Once, maybe twice a month.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And he's going to be doing his thing. He's going to, have his guests or solo wherever he wants to take it creatively. I'm going to support him where and how and when I can. But I'm going to also then help promote Pursuing Truth. I'm going to help, get it out there on social media. And then I'm also going to be able to build out, hopefully, with other podcasters, other Catholic Christian podcasters. Hector's taken the big leap of being one of the first, not tackling the first. We had Michaela Brooks. We can't forget
Mhm.
about Michaela Brooks a couple years ago. But Hector is bringing his podcast that he's already built under the Backseat Media Network, which is
Let's
really
go.
exciting. And I'm really pumped for it. I'm really grateful to Hector for trusting me with kind of building out my vision, but also allowing me to speak into his vision that he's already built out. So, bro, I just want to officially say welcome to Backseat Media, and I'm
Thanks,
excited
man.
for where God brings this.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much, Pete. Yeah, Pete, you've been so supportive and a great man. And yeah, I'm totally for your vision, dude. I really like what you're doing, and I've gotten to know you a little more as a man, and you're just a man of faith, dude. You have a beautiful family, and what you do is right, man. And your media, I mean, it's good stuff. It really is. I've looked through your videos and gotten to know you better. It was crazy because I met you off of this like crazy night that I was not supposed to meet you, dude. Jeremy, one of my good buddies, had put together a men's night at his house, and he invited me and a couple buddies out because he knew us from college. And so we went all the way to San Antonio. We are like, damn, we're gonna have to drive an hour. Like, I don't really want to go. I got homework and stuff to do or whatever. And we were like, let's go, whatever. And went out there and met you out there, dude. And we kind of took off from there. So I mean, it's just kind of like like I know the Lord wanted us to meet and praise God for that and for putting us together. Hopefully we can change the world.
Dude, heck yeah, bro. And that, dude, that was a great night. And also that night, which is such a funny experience for me, I also had like deep Bell's palsy. My face couldn't move.
Oh, yes, yes.
I like showed up at this thing. I like didn't know anyone. Hey, what's up, guys? I think you guys were like, oh, who's this guy? Oh, who invited this guy? Is this like Make a Wish thing? Like, hey, one more hangout with the bros, dude. And I was like, oh,
Dude, but your honesty was on point because you walked in and you were like, "Hey guys, I don't normally look like this." And I was just like, "Oh, this guy's a wreck. I gotta go talk to him."
yeah, who is this guy? I was like, usually my other side of my face works. That was always my line. My other side of my face usually works. It's not right now, but it usually does. This has been a great conversation. I really appreciate your time, appreciate your story, appreciate you sharing it, having the vulnerability, the humility, the honesty to share it. I know a lot of people are going to get a lot out of this. So thank you for coming on. I appreciate your time, man.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on, Pete.
Yeah. For all of you out there, make sure you go look up Pursuing Truth. Go listen to his podcast, check out all his content, look out for more stuff in the future. Make sure you like, subscribe, share this podcast with someone who you think might like it. And I'll talk to you all soon. Peace.
Let's do it.